Back in the 1970s, when telephones were telephones, they're connected by landlines, and you could dial up other people using this rotary system to punch in each number individually. You always had to beware of when a stranger calls. This is a 1979 film from Fred Walton, and it's an interesting film because it's a film that I think on one level or another, everybody kind of knows because it's so closely associated with an urban legend that is just about identical to the opening of the film. Where, I mean, of course, you can't really copyright an urban legend, I guess. So that's kind of what inspires this film. A crazed killer calling this poor unsuspecting babysitter alone on a dark night, asking her has she checked in on the children, and she calls the police, and wouldn't you know it, they've traced the calls. They're coming from inside the house. That's basically it. I mean, so I guess spoilers in this review, but everyone kind of knows the basic outline, at least of kind of the opening premise of this one. So whether or not you know the actual movie, I'm sure you know the urban legend, and maybe there's a little bit more details to follow here with this one, fleshed out a little bit more. This was apparently a short film, I think called The Babysitter, or The Babysitter Calls, or something like that, from Fred Walton, who decided, with the success of John Carpenter's Halloween a year prior, that this was worth expanding on. This was worth exploring a little bit more, making into a fully fledged feature film, which this is the result of that. So we get the opening 20 minutes or so, which is by all accounts fairly similar to the short film of The Babysitter. She's played by Carol Kane, who's an excellent actress, actually. I mean, everybody knows Carol Kane on one level or another. Either, I mean, whether it be something more recent, like I know she was on the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. She was kind of the drunken landlord, or Scrooged, the Ghost of Christmas Present. She was great in that. Lotka's girlfriend on Taxi, if you remember that. And at this point, she was already an Oscar-nominated actress. So she has her creds going into this, but I think what makes the opening sequence work not just is in the good writing, but in a very good and convincing performance by Carol Kane, who plays the poor tortured babysitter who's getting these calls, trying to figure things out. She's talking to the police, like, oh, well, why don't you try whistle, blow into the phone or something like that, things like that. Well, thanks officer. But yes, of course, eventually the police do trace the call, and they figure out what this madman is up to. Calls, have you checked on the children? Which she doesn't, which is probably smart on her part. But they've traced the call. The call's coming from within the house. Guess what? The children are dead upstairs. Oh my God! And she's traumatized by this, and that's the opening of the film. It's very creepy. The voice on the phone is Tony Beckley, who we find out a little bit more about his character, who would be named Kurt Duncan. Just a crazy maniac from England, who is caught and then institutionalized. Now, to expand further on this original premise, this opening 20 minutes, that are of course the most memorable, they try a little bit. They try a few different angles, which maybe is to its detriment. I don't really know. What they seem to struggle with is they don't quite know if they want to make it kind of this. Oh, how is this girl now a woman 7 years later, which is when the bulk of the film takes place? How is she dealing with the trauma? How she's getting on with her life? She has kids of her own, actually, about the same age as the children who she was babysitting all those years ago. So how does it affect her once this, again, spoilers, once this killer comes back? He's escaped from the institution, right? So there's a little bit of that, but there's also a little bit of kind of the obsessed detective story who's Charles Durning, who's also excellent in the film. I mean, if you want someone to play a seasoned cop, detective, or actually in this case, as we learn, he started out as a police officer, but became a private investigator, working for the parents of the children who were killed once news breaks out of the escape. That whole kind of obsessed with the killer, with the case, redeeming himself through it kind of thing. Maybe not the most original thing in the world, but certainly elevated by a completely solid performance from Charles Durning, who, you know, he looks like had just walked off of the set of Dog Day Afternoon. And I mean, really, I mean, how many times do you suppose Charles Durning has played a cop in his career? At least 30. At least. And he does it well. And he does it with a lot of conviction and lends a fair amount of legitimacy to that. So that's another aspect to it, the whole Charles Durning portion of the film. They also try to explore the killer a little bit with the Kurt Duncan character. Try to get inside his head a little bit, how he can't quite fit into the world. He can't really effectively socialize with people and make connections. And when he does, when he tries, things go terribly, terribly wrong. And he just kind of reverts back to the killing, to his murderous ways. So that seems to be all he knows, all he can do well. So it's kind of like a character study in that sense, trying to get a little bit of sympathy out of the otherwise unsympathetic. So since it tries all this, maybe it doesn't do either aspect especially well. Maybe if they focused on one or the other, they could have given it a little bit more weight. But maybe not. Maybe this is just about the only way they could flesh out just this, 20-minute scene into a 90-minute movie, I guess. But I suppose my criticism of the movie isn't any different than anyone else's. Like, pretty much anyone will tell you, hey, opening of the movie is great, it's classic, it's legendary, it's very unnerving, very scary, everybody knows it, everybody loves it, yeah, great. But the rest of the movie, not so much. But then it kind of redeems itself a little bit in the end. We have a good kind of ending sequence where, yeah, the poor babysitter girl, Jill Johnson, she gets another call from the killer while her kids are being babysat while she's out with her husband. And yeah, it's this whole kind of cheesy thing again. She's grown up. She has this husband who I guess is like just the pinnacle of man in the late 70s with the dopey glasses and the fro. Like he looks like he just came back from taking Carrie to the prom or something like that. He's a complete douchebag, by the way, snapping at waiters, and he's like, oh, I got a promotion at my big business job or whatever. And then Maitre d's like, oh, we have a call for you. And then what is it? Have you checked on the children? Uh-oh, and that traumatizes her. She, fucking breaks down and stuff. So it becomes, deja vu all over again with this horrible encounter. And this time, maybe the crazed maniac is going to finish what he started. But just in case you haven't seen it, I'm not going to say exactly what happens in the ending, other than yes, there is an encounter once again. But I'm well aware that people know the opening, but maybe not so much the ending to this movie, which is decent. I mean, there's a good little reveal, and things kind of come together, and it does. Yeah, you know what? It definitely has a Halloween kind of feel with the Charles Durning character, sort of feeling like a Dr. Loomis type almost. So it's a decent movie altogether, though maybe it just doesn't live up to what was achieved in the opening. So I mean, hardly a new criticism of of the movie, but you know, it's true. It's absolutely true. But still worth watching. So if somehow you missed this one, I think it's worth checking out. Worth going back to if you have. So that's my review of When a Stranger Calls, 1979 edition. Thank you very much for watching. We're doing more scary movie reviews throughout the month of October on the channel, so please join me for more. Until next time, be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, and stay scared.